I have to look good now. I have to smile for this.
Yeah, it's like do it like a funny pose and then turn it off as you're doing that. Like do like a really funny face and then freeze it.
I'll just smile.
All right.
Does that work for you?
Yeah, that's good. Do I sound more free to you at the moment? Can you feel the freedom that only comes with being in the United States of America?
I can definitely tell that you are more free.
I'm in your home state.
Oh, yes, you are in New York then, huh? The Empire State, the greatest name for a state ever.
Yep, I am in New York City, talking to you from the Big Apple. I am on Manhattan, a place I do love, and I've been here for about a week, and I spent a few days in Boston, and now I'm back in New York for a few more days, doing various things, various interviews, mainly for Numberphile. In fact, do you know who I interviewed?
Who did you interview?
I interviewed that billionaire that we spoke about in an earlier podcast. You know, I said it was the richest man I'd ever met.
Yes,
and you said,
yes.
oh, did you interview him? And I said, no, and I probably won't ever interview him, but who knows? I went and I interviewed him at his office.
Very exciting. How did that happen?
It's kind of a long story, but it's because he's a mathematician.
For a second, I actually thought you were going to say he's a fan of the podcast. And I felt a little bit of disappointment there when you're like, oh, he's a fan of, mathematics. Oh, okay. I guess that makes more sense. But for a moment, I thought maybe we would have a billionaire listener.
Yeah, did you see his Patreon pledge for $200 million an episode?
Excellent. We can retire after this one.
Yep. No, I don't think he knew the podcast. I don't think he knew a tremendous amount about Numberphile either. But he agreed to an interview, and that will appear soon. So stay tuned. I'll tell you a story. This is an interesting story. I don't know if I should tell this, but I'll tell it anyway.
Okay.
Because I used a cameraman, which I never use, and he came along with me and helped me out. And it's not a secret, so I can say this, that this gentleman does occasionally have a cigarette. All right? Mm-hmm. So, and, he smokes I've seen him smoke in public places, so I can say, I'm not talking out of school. It's funny, actually. It's a bit taboo, isn't it, to say someone smokes? But anyway.
Wait. Saying, who are you talking about? The cameraman smokes or the billionaire smokes?
The billionaire.
Okay.
The billionaire smokes. So, and, he's allowed to do what he wants. He's a billionaire. And, he gives a lot of money to good causes. So if he wants to have a cigarette, I'm not going to judge him.
Right.
But what I found really interesting was we went to his office. Gorgeous office, full of beautiful things, beautiful furniture, works of art on the wall. You could tell it was the office of someone who has done well in business. And then he had a little bit of a cigarette because he'd been out working all day. So we waited for him to finish. And that halfway through, I think he had another puff of a cigarette, and maybe at some other point. And the interesting thing was, each time he had another puff of a cigarette, he would then just put out the mostly unused cigarette in an ashtray. And then when he had another puff, he would start a new cigarette. And afterwards, when we left, I was saying to the cameraman, oh, what'd you think of him? Oh, yeah, he was a really nice guy, really interesting. And I was like, did it feel like he was really, really rich to you? Could you tell he was really rich?
I forgot this is your thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the only thing the cameraman said was, the moment I knew he was rich was when he would start a new cigarette each time, and he wouldn't relight the old one. And I thought that was so cute, that of all the things, all the works of art and valuable things and stories he told and trappings of wealth, the one thing the cameraman noticed that made him think he was rich was he starts new cigarettes each time he wants a puff.
I guess the first puff is the best puff. I don't know. Is that the way it works? If you're a billionaire, you might as well only have first puffs. You don't have to deal with second puffs.
I mean, I don't think when he's having a whole cigarette, he just has first puff after first puff after first puff.
I would do that if I was a billionaire. Assuming that the first puff is the best puff.
I don't know. I've never had a puff of a cigarette, so...
Me neither, so we are not able to talk on this topic.
We are the worst people in the world to talk about which puff of a cigarette is the best.
It has to be the first one.
I don't know. Maybe there's a sweet spot in the middle of the cigarette where you get the best flavour or the best nicotine high or buzz, or I don't know. If you're a smoker, let us know which puff is the best puff.
I got money on first. First puff is the best puff.
I imagine the first puff is the best for other reasons, because you haven't had a smoke for, an hour, so you badly want one. So that first puff seems the best.
Well, that's all that matters. The first puff seems the best.
No, because if you've sat down for a smoking session, right,
okay.
And like,
is this what smokers do? They sit down for smoking sessions?
yes. So now you've had your first puff, so you've
Okay.
been sated, and now you're just going to say, all right, now I'm going to finish a cigarette. Would it be nicer to have a series of that first few centimeters of a cigarette, or once you've got going and you've got your momentum going, is there a sweet spot in the middle of the cigarette that tastes nicer, or the chemicals have mixed better, or the oxygen's had the temperature's got to some, I don't know.
I'm overcome with the need to say, don't smoke, kids.
Yeah.
Like, I have to point out that smoking is not necessarily the best idea.
In fact, it's a bad idea.
Yes, it's a terrible idea.
And neither of us do it, and we are shining examples. And that's another reason that people should build statues of us.
Oh, this again. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the Brady statue pushing away the coffee.
Well, you
noble.
pushed for the introvert statue of you inside a house as well.
I simply mentioned it. I think there was no pushing.
You sowed the seeds.
You were pushing.
Anyway, a remarkable thing happened.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Boston.
Mm-hmm.
I checked into my hotel in Cambridge, where MIT is, because I was also doing some interviews there. Plugged in my laptop, went onto Twitter, and immediately the top tweet was a tweet from Dirk from Verestablium.
Derek from Veritasium.
Basically, yeah, that guy. Basically saying, I just arrived at Boston and I'm doing something at MIT tomorrow. He was doing like a public talk with Michael Stevens from Vsauce, who's also a friend of mine. And I was like, that's amazing. So like I texted him and said, I just arrived in Boston as well. Like, where are you staying?
Mm-hmm.
And then as I was writing another text saying I am staying at, the Cambridge Marriott, he sent a text to me that crossed over with my text saying, I'm staying at the Cambridge Marriott. Half an hour later, Derek and Michael and some other YouTubers who I hadn't met but who were really cool turned up. I got to hang out with them for a few days. And then I was like, oh, what are you doing next? And they're like, oh, now we're all going to New York. So they all came back to New York as well, and they're all in New York. It's turned into a big chance to just to hang out with my mates. It's amazing.
It's like a spontaneous, smaller YouTube conference.
I know. It's the second time this has happened with Dirk as well, because I remember one time I was in Berkeley and he just tweeted a picture of that big pyramid-y building in San Francisco and just didn't say anything, put it on Instagram. And I'm like, man, you're in San Francisco. I'm here right now as well. And we had dinner that night as well. So I think maybe he's following me.
What I was just thinking is Derek travels so much that he's like a quantum waveform over all the cities of the world at once. And so there must always be a non-zero chance that Derek is in any particular city at any particular time.
Or maybe it's a bit more Schrodinger and he's in two places at the same time.
Right. But then you observe him in Boston, and so suddenly he's in Boston and he's not in the other places that he could be.
So if I'd been in San Francisco, I could have had dinner with him there as well.
Yes, you could have had dinner with him in San Francisco. Like, there's an infinite number of universes where he's sending out messages that he's in all of the various cities, and it just collapses to the one where you are. So I think maybe bumping into Derek all over the world is much less unlikely than we might first assume.
He expressed a lot of gratitude to me for starting this whole Dirk thing.
Oh, did he? I'm sure he loves that.
Yeah, he really appreciates it and said, keep it up.
Yeah.
Keep it up. I really enjoy all the comments and things that happen as a result, he said.
Yeah. If I message him now, is that what I'm going to hear from Derek? I don't
He
think
may
it
not
is.
remember saying that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think I might be hearing a different story from Derek of Veritasium if I actually message him directly. I think you are full of lies, Brady.
Yeah.
Full of lies.
But anyway, it was good fun. It was good fun to see him and Michael and some other new people I met. The physics girl, who is a YouTuber I had not met before, but she was nice. And
It really is a big YouTube EDU party. I'm envious.
Gross Science, which is a new channel as well. I met the girl who makes that. There are a lot of YouTube channels. I've got a lot of catching up to do.
I still don't know how you do all this traveling. Your life exhausts me sometimes. I feel like I am still barely caught up with getting my life back into some kind of normal semblance from my vacation from 3 weeks ago. And you are already flying to different countries and then going to different cities. You're impressive. You're hard as nails.
I am hard as nails, but I have to admit I am struggling a bit this time.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be back home. And I've actually said, and I don't know if I'll stick to this, but now you're going to have proof of it on the podcast. I've said I'm going to impose a travel ban for the next 3 months where I am not going to be away from home for more than one night.
So people on Twitter can keep track of you. 3 months starting when? When does this begin?
I want to try and do May, June, and July at home.
Okay. May, June, and July. Keep an eye on him, people.
Or if I go away for more than 2 nights, that will be with my wife on a holiday.
Okay. Yes, holidays don't count.
Yeah.
But otherwise, if you're filming in San Francisco or elsewhere, that does count, and you've broken your travel ban.
Oh, I wish I hadn't said it now.
You did say it precisely because you want people to hold you to it.
Yeah, it's good. You're right.
That's why you brought it up.
Hold me to it.
Don't forget Twitter. Never forget.
Never forget.
The internet never forgets.
Now, I think people are going to ask. People have asked us to, I don't know what they want us to do or say, but obviously there's been a great tragedy in Nepal as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess because we talk about Nepal and Mount Everest a lot on the podcast, people, as opposed to some tragedies, people are more likely to ask us about this. Has this crossed the CGP grade news radar, the earthquake in Nepal?
Yes, I haven't been on Twitter very much, but when I did log on Twitter, I saw a bunch of messages all telling me, oh, I guess the random acts of intelligence trip to base camp is off, with links to various news articles. And yes, well, the first thing that I saw was that there had been some massive avalanche down at base camp, which you assured me was perfectly safe, and instead resulted in the deaths of numerous people. So this is how it originally came across my radar. And then looking into it, it seems like it has been a much bigger earthquake than just that one incident.
I have to say, I am staggered by how widespread this is. Because the earthquake didn't happen that close to Mount Everest. I mean, it's devastated Kathmandu, which is quite away from Mount Everest. And it has been really sad seeing, I mean, obviously it's incredibly sad, the number of people who died, but it's also been really sad seeing a lot of the landmarks and buildings that I really enjoyed and took photos of and stuff in Kathmandu have just been destroyed. But then also Mount Everest, I mean, I guess it's pretty fragile in the Himalaya, and, shaking these mountains around can dislodge snow. But I've been amazed by the scale of the impact it had at Mount Everest.
Mm-hmm.
I still think we'd have to have been very unlucky because you're only ever at base camp itself for sort of an hour or two when you do the trip. And you'd still would have been unlucky to have been right in the heart of base camp.
I feel. Wait, are you trying to back into the still a base camp trip? Is that where this is going? Is it like, it's a huge tragedy, but actually still we can go to base camp?
Well, I don't want to see the whole tourist industry of the Khumbu Valley obliterated because of a tragedy.
No,
in fact, this is the time we should be supporting them.
Listen. The kinds of people who are going to go to Everest, this is not going to stop them. I don't think there are a lot of people on the margins of, ooh, maybe I'll go, maybe I won't. If you're going to Everest, you're the kind of person who's going to Everest. I bet you the tourist trade is perfectly fine. I bet they'll be totally okay with people going back to Everest.
Well, not if scaredy cats like you keep.
But I was never going to Everest in the first place.
You're
right?
coming. You're coming if the rest of us come.
No, my statement was that the value proposition changes if everybody goes. But the value proposition has changed again with earthquakey, avalanchy death now very clearly on the horizon. As what you promised me was like, oh, you'll just be able to relax at base camp. You just get to chill out, just hang out. And now you're backtracking. Oh, we'll only be there for an hour. It won't be very dangerous. No, I don't like this.
You misinterpret what this base camp trip is like. You don't go and spend time at base camp. It's a bit like going on a trip to Paris, and you spend half an hour at the top of the Eiffel Tower because that's what you do. But there's weeks of stuff either side, and it's like that with base camp.
Weeks?
There's lots of.
Oh, forget it. Weeks? No.
Well, it's a long walk. I have to admit, though, I have to admit, I was talking to Dirk about it last night, and I did say we were talking about what happened in Nepal, and then we were also talking about, well, I guess this is going to put a dampener on the chances of Gray coming with us.
Mm-hmm.
And then he told me about a walk in the wilderness that you guys did the day before I arrived in Alabama.
Oh, yeah, you weren't there for that.
I wasn't there, but I was told, and I was shown photographic proof that you were a bit of a lightweight. And you were like, oh, it's so steep, and oh, it's so rocky, and I saw a picture of you gingerly holding onto a tree as if you were going to fall over while everyone else was just hanging around like they were normal human beings. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is a problem.
I won't try to defend myself except for the fact that I was wildly unprepared with the foot gear, and that would have been much less of a problem if I actually had boots. But I had completely worn down, perfectly smooth sneakers trying to walk down hills with wet leaves on them. So this was not ideal circumstances. And I was not described what this route would be like, probably on purpose, before we set off on it. That was not my idea of an entertaining time. I believe I called it a death march on the Random Acts of Intelligence stage is what it felt like, especially because Henry of Minute Physics, who's some kind of superhero, decides that after he's gotten off a long plane flight, the thing he needs to do to recuperate is basically march at top speed through the woods. And so this is why we were there in the first place. You get off the plane and it's like, oh, what do you want to do? He's like, I want to march through the woods. And so we did. And I was like, I am not prepared for this. I did not sign up for this. I would never have gone along with this if I knew what it was in advance. And you get to make fun of it because you weren't there at the time. But I guarantee if you had been blindsided by that, you would have been grumpy like me.
I'm pretty hard. I would have handled it all right. I like a good walk, but yeah. I mean, I couldn't keep up with Henry. He's like ridiculous,
but it wasn't a walk. It was a descent is the best way to put it. Like I enjoy a good walk as well, but this was not a good walk.
Yeah. You like a nice walk, like, you know, through London to a burger bar or something for some fries.
You forget, man. I've gone into the national parks. I'm not as totally in the city kind of person as you think I am all the time.
All right.
Anyway.
All right.
Base camp, not going to happen. That's the bottom line. But it also was never going to happen. This doesn't really change anything.
I still think there's a chance. I'm gonna work on it, but
there is a non-zero chance. You are correct.
Okay. Something we talked about in the last podcast, or maybe even the last couple of podcasts, has been the whole issue of interacting with retail workers.
Yes.
Should you have have a nice day, chat if you're a regular and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think quite possibly this is the topic I have received the most tweets about. And the thing that I was finding kind of frustrating at first was I was getting all the tweets. They were all at Brady Harrons and not at CGP Grey as well. Mm-hmm. And they were all people agreeing with me. Mm-hmm. They were all saying, at Brady Harron, I agree with you, a bit of, you know, to different levels. Some were saying a little bit's okay and some was really like it. But definitely the overall tone that I have received is people agreeing with me that a bit of interaction is nice. But they were all just sending it to me. And I was going crazy and I was about to start sending all these things back saying, don't tell me, like I already know. Tell Gray, he's the one that needs to know this. Mm-hmm. And then I went back and listened to the podcast and there was a little thing you said, something along the lines of,
yes,
if you've got any
said,
feedback,
please tweet Brady.
Tweet it to Brady. That's crazy. Like
this was my slight revenge for the airplane thing. Right. That's what I was trying to do there. I'm glad you got a bunch of feedback. I actually did see it. I was curious. I looked at your @replies at one point, and also just on the Reddit. I have to say there was much more positive feedback from retail workers about being happy to chit chat with customers or wanting to chit chat with customers than I would have expected. But afterwards, I was thinking about it, and then I realized, oh wait, that actually makes more sense than I might have first thought, because there's going to be a selection bias here with the kinds of people who are applying to retail jobs in the first place. Like I would never apply to a retail job unless, I absolutely had to. All of the various jobs I've ever done have not been very customer centric. I could see that for someone who thinks I would enjoy a retail position is much more likely to be an extroverted person. You probably don't have throngs of introverts trying to get into retail positions.
There's also probably a second level of bias going on here, and that is the sorts of people who are going to tweet or Reddit or email and say, hey, I want to tell you what I think, are also the sorts of people who quite like that. So
this is why I think there's also a problem with just companies, like in particular here in the UK, Starbucks, pushing for policies where their employees are supposed to talk to the customers, because I think the very customers who fill out feedback forms and surveys about how their little interactions went at Starbucks or what they wish Starbucks did, I think it's the same kind of selection bias, that the people who love social interaction are much more likely to fill out those forms and say, oh, I wish the retail employees talked to me more. And the people like me never fill out those forms and just keep moving on. So I think, like, even from a company perspective, they're probably going to hear more from the outgoing people as well, and then bend policies more towards them. And then in Starbucks, make them ask for your name, which is a terrible policy in London and is hugely frustrating, and I hate it.
All of that said, I have come out the other side of this thinking I'm a bit more in the right than you. I do think more people do long for contact. When I told my wife about the conversation, she doesn't listen to the podcast, but when I told her about your position and my position, she was like outraged at you. She thinks you're very wrong.
That I don't want to talk to people at Starbucks.
She thinks it's not the right attitude to have. She thinks people should interact with each other.
Always, all the time.
Generally, yeah, generally.
Let me tell you like a kind of funny little thing here.
All right.
About interaction that I've just noticed. So I think I have mentioned before on the podcast that my parents retired from New York down to North Carolina several years ago. When I go visit them, there's a kind of a walking path behind where their house is, and there are a whole bunch of people who use the walking path and the surrounding houses. And as someone who lived in New York, when I visited them and would go on the path, I was always kind of just exhausted by the number of people who would say good morning, right, and say hello, right, and we're just like walking by the stream of people, and so many of them would greet you, like look right at you and say hello. And to me, this is just totally startling. And also, as someone who lives in London, you can walk right by someone in a place like Hyde Park. Nobody acknowledges anybody else because you just can't possibly. But in North Carolina, I was surprised because I thought the people density here is too high to keep up this level of interaction, yet they still do it. It was absolutely exhausting.
So it's not like one person every 20 minutes or something. It's like a total stream of people both ways.
I will on this walking path, I would say it was probably at busy times like a person a minute, and they would still all say hi. And it was just exhausting. But my only point here that I did notice was that it was different depending on two factors. Am I walking with my wife? And is the other person walking with a partner of theirs? If you have two couples walking down the path, it was like 100% guaranteed that the other couple is going to say, "Oh, good morning to you." And then you say good morning as well and take off your hat and keep walking or whatever. But if it was two single people, and two, in particular, single guys walking past each other, that was the highest probability of not having to do anything except the nod. You know about the nod, right, Brady?
Yeah,
between guys.
I know the nod.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was just a pleasure. And it suggested to me that there are very many people who don't really want to do this, but it was like, oh, great. We're two guys. We're just walking past each other on the path. We'll just do the nod. And that's all that's necessary. We acknowledge the existence of the other person, but we don't have to keep saying like, "Oh, hello to you too, sir. What a fine day." And do it again and again and again on this walking path. Also, having a dog was death. If I was walking the dog, everybody says hi too. I was like, "Oh, great."
You should try walking Audrey. But two guys meeting like alone on a path in the woods does carry a certain amount of baggage that you may want to avoid. So I can see why you just move on as quickly as possible.
That's exactly it. We don't want this to end in a murder or a knife fight. It's like a bunch of silverback gorillas all walking past each other on the path. Right? We acknowledge each other, but we're staying out of our personal space, out of the territory, and that's the way it should be.
All right.
Anyway,
someone has pointed out this word. I'm going to try and pronounce it. No, I'm not. Lagniappe? Lagniappe? How would you say that? Lagniappe?
Yeah, you have to say it with a high tone like that, a high pitch.
You know how to read those Wikipedia how to say things.
No, I do not. I can see, I'm looking at it literally right now, and I see this stupid IPA, and you know how useful it is? 0% useful. That's how useful it is.
Oh, it looks, next to it's got lagniappe written. Is it lagniappe? Lagniappe?
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay,
man, we're just embarrassing ourselves.
You're embarrassing yourself because this is your note and you didn't look it up ahead of time.
I only looked at it like 5 seconds before we started recording.
Okay, to be fair, that is more preparation than I did.
Yeah, there you
I've
go.
got the how do you say guy doing it.
And
lagniappe is the way he's saying it.
Just lagniappe. It looks posher than that. It looks like it should be more exotic.
He has two ways to say it, but I'm having a hard time hearing what he's doing with the first one. I'll put the audio in because this is that guy that everybody knows as the dude who pronounces words guy.
Lagniappe or lagniappe.
This is the word for, according to Wikipedia, a small gift given to a customer by a merchant at the time of purchase. So the example used on the page here is like getting an extra donut when you buy a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
The example I used last week was the guy I bought a car from giving me like a sponge to wash my car.
Mm-hmm.
I like that there's a word for it, and I do think it's an interesting phenomenon, this whole giving someone something to make them feel special. There you go.
Lagniappe.
I like there's, you know me, I like words.
You
Maybe
do
I
love
can-
your words.
Maybe I can appropriate that word sort of freeboot style and give it some new meaning at some point in the future. Oh, you know how I could use it? When I make a video, like, you know, like a number file video that's like 10 minutes long, but there's some extra footage I cut and I put it on number file 2, I could call that my lagniappe video. If you'd like some lagniappe to go with this video, go over to number file 2.
No, it doesn't make any sense. The viewers haven't purchased anything. It's a terrible reappropriation of this word. No, thumbs down.
What?
This cannot happen.
I feel like they've given me their time and their attention, and for that, I'm going to give them the extra footage
A
that
small
they otherwise
gift
wouldn't have seen.
given to a customer by a merchant at the time of purchase. That's not your bonus video is nothing like that.
Gray,
This is
you're
totally
misunderstanding.
different.
You're misunderstanding.
I understand that you're trying to take a word that has a
change it.
perfectly solid definition and
Yeah.
just broaden it. This
like
happens.
freebooting. It's like a new use for it. My
Freebooting-
lagniappe videos. Oh, I love Brady's lagniappe videos. They're the best. I don't like Gray's lagniappe videos so much. They're a bit short, but Brady does good lagniappe videos.
I don't have any lagniappe videos. I will never have a lagniappe video. That's not going to happen. I'll have footnotes. I'll have extra videos. I'll have bonus videos, but not lagniappe videos because that doesn't make any sense and it's a terrible reappropriation. No. I can hear you breathing in. No, whatever you got, I do not approve of this. This will not happen. I mean,
No,
I guess
I'm
I
just-
can't stop you, but no one will go along with this plan.
The harder you go in against me, the more likely I am to succeed. So I'm just letting you help me.
I am not helping you.
Lagniappe videos. Keep an eye out, people. I'll put it in the video description.
God damn it. No, you won't.
Thank you for watching this lagniappe video. Brought to you by.
No,
Maybe I won't. I don't know yet. Let's see.
I hate
Don't rule it out.
I hate it when words have solid, precise, specific definitions and they kind of turn to mush over time. I mean, it happens with every single word in existence, but still, I find it frustrating when this occurs. That's what, all you're
Okay.
doing is accelerating this process now.
One final bit of follow up here. And this
Okay.
again was something that happened. This again, well, it's not a word, it's an emoji. In the last episode, I revealed how I use the wolf face emoji as the representation of both my dogs, actually, because they've both got this kind of yellowy beige colour to them. So if like I'm texting my wife about the dogs and we're being cute, I might sometimes use that. And we discussed it. Anyway, you did a nice thing today, and you were tweeting me something about one of my dogs, and you used the wolf face emoji.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on TweetDeck, and I thought you just used the wrong emoji because instead of this side profile of a yellow dog, I got this forward-facing grey dog looking at me. So I cheekily messaged you back in TweetDeck to say, yeah, you used the wrong one and use the correct one.
Oh, that's what you were doing. When you sent me the emoji back, I thought you were just being an idiot. I thought you were like, why did he send me this back? He just must have copied, pasted. Brady, he doesn't know what he's doing on the computer.
No, what I did was I went into, because I don't know how to do emojis in TweetDeck, so I went into my messaging app in my OS, and there it was the yellow dog.
Right.
And I copy and pasted it into TweetDeck, and it still appeared as the dog. And as soon as I pressed return, it turned into that grey-faced dog. And I was like, what the hell's going on?
It's
So,
a
then
wolf. It's very clearly a wolf.
Yeah, well, okay. It doesn't look so much like a wolf when it's that yellow one. It looks more like my dog's. So I went into my phone and looked at the Twitter conversation in iOS, and sure enough, both of us had used the yellow dog. And I'm like, what's going on? And I tweeted you in this sort of state of confusion. And you then pointed out to me that you via this Emojipedia or whatever, something I didn't even know existed, that in iOS and OS, it appears as the yellow dog that looks like Lulu and Audrey. And in other systems, it's this forward-facing grey wolf. This is a game changer for me, because now, depending on who I'm interacting with, maybe I can't use the yellow dog to represent Audrey and Lulu. That's just stupid now.
This is the weird thing with emoji. And, I have mixed feelings about the emoji. But one of the biggest problems is, yes, that all of the various platforms and sometimes even particular programs like TweetDeck will render the emoji differently because there's just this description of what it's supposed to be. And I think, for that one, it just says wolf face. And so Apple decides to draw the wolf face in the most unwolf-like looking way ever, but then ends up being your
more
Audrey
like-
Lulu dog.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a wolf in the slightest. It looks like a fox, if anything.
Yeah.
The really weird ones are with people, when you see what the descriptions are supposed to be of the people and then how various operating systems or programs choose to interpret that description. So
what will that say? A blonde-haired girl or something? Or
one of the weird ones, I mean, just some of the Apple ones are really creepy. But there's like girl wearing bunny ears, which is I don't even know how does this official list of emoji get created? Who decides that girl wearing bunny ears is going to be an official emoji, and then Apple has to decide what they want?
Tweet Gray your answers on that one, by the way, because everyone's going to want to answer that.
I'm gonna cut that out because I can Google myself 2 seconds to find. I don't know right now.
You didn't do it when you told people to tweet me. You didn't cut that out.
I'll leave it in, but don't tweet me, people. I'll just block you forever because like, I can just Google it myself. I know that the answer is there. I'm just saying this because I don't know right now. But it seems weird that there's a committee somewhere which is like, yeah, girl with bunny ears. We're on top of that. That's got to be a thing to do.
We need that. There's huge demand for girl with bunny ears.
Yeah, and like there's tons of things that they don't. Oh, but with that one on iOS, it renders as two girls dancing, and then on other ones, it's just a face with little bunny ears. It's just. You don't know what you're sending to the other person unless you know for 100% sure that they are using the same program on the same operating system as you.
That's a real problem too, because sometimes you like try to make little stories out of your emoji, like, you've got a gun pointing at something, and if the gun's rendered the other way around, suddenly you've gone from shooting one thing to another thing, and there's a lot of potential problems here.
Emojis are really designed for interpersonal communication. Like you are talking to someone you know, and you are trying to convey something jokey or emotional that is difficult to do in very short sentences. But as soon as you start talking about putting emoji in a broader form, it becomes very hard. Sometimes I see people want to put emojis on their website. Do you know, you don't know how that's going to render on somebody else's computer, and I don't know. I have mixed feelings about the emojis, but they're just weird, and this is yet another weird thing about emojis. And the Apple ones are all so weird and creepy if you look at the people.
I like that they've got a Lulu Audrey emoji by accident, so I like them. Also, the other thing someone pointed out, the wolf face emoji had a sudden spike in, I don't know if it was the page where they describe it or the emoji itself, had a sudden spike in interest. It nearly hit the top 10 on Emojipedia after Hello Internet mentioned it. So we, however it renders, we were responsible for a sudden surge in interest. And there's like a great graph that shows it as well. We were responsible for a surge in interest in the wolf emoji, which I feel good about it.
Yeah, our show notes, they carry a lot of power. People click on the show notes, they check things out. You can push a wolf face emoji to not quite the top 10 on a website. It's, we must be careful how we wield this great power when we link to things in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, be careful. Take it easy. Take it easy with those things. Anyway, thank you for pointing that out. It made me feel good.
There we go. Is that follow-up? Are we good done with follow-up?
That's follow-up done. This Hello Internet episode has been brought to you by Hover. If you want to register a domain name, check out hover.com. If you're doing anything in the online world, it's really worth making sure you've got a really good domain name, and Hover is the place to do it. It's a great site, great service, and great prices. They've got a few little extras, things you should know about, like valet transfers, where they'll take care of all the hassle of transferring other domain names you've got with another registrar and putting it onto Hover. They also handle all the DNS stuff. I don't know exactly what that means, but I know it causes lots of problems, and they're really good at it and make sure you won't have any hassles. Another thing they're really good for is volume discounts. If you're someone like Gray, one of those people who likes to hoard lots of domain names, they've got some really good offers, good prices. If you're buying, I think it's more than 10, the good prices start to kick in. Now, if you're a Hello Internet listener, there's a very special deal, 10% off your first purchase by using the code when you check out DIRK, D-I-R-K. That's DIRK, 10% off, hover.com. Check them out. By the way, if you're having problems with my pronunciation, Hover is HOVER.com. They're a great sponsor. They're great fun to work with, especially because they let us use all these cool codes. So there you go. Domain names, hover.com, Dirk. If I may briefly bring up something very serious and sad, and that is a person who I know, Colin. His name is Colin Bloomfield. He worked for the BBC in the East Midlands where I used to work, and he was diagnosed with skin cancer quite a while ago. And after a really amazing battle with skin cancer that he handled with total class and dignity, but also really tried to make a difference about cancer awareness, unfortunately, Colin recently died. It was very sad news, but I just wanted to give him a quick mention here on the podcast as a top man who handled some terrible misfortune in a really, really classy way. And if you ever want to check him out, you can Google this guy, Colin Bloomfield, and see some of what he did. And Gray may even put in the show notes a link to a sort of a foundation or a trust or something that was started in Colin's name to raise money to do with skin cancer awareness in the part of England where he was from. So rest in peace to Colin Bloomfield. And if everyone has different things they like to support, but if skin cancer is something that is on your mind and that's something you'd like to contribute to, go and check it out.
Link in the show notes.
All right. Now I have another little thank you and a sort of plug, for lack of a better word, that I should mention, and that is today I am recording in an incredibly hot sound booth.
Yeah, how's it going over there? When the door was closed, I thought, I know how that's going to go. Sound isolation is also heat isolation.
It is. I'm really starting to get very hot here, but I am grateful for the opportunity because obviously New York is a very loud place, and I am recording in the TED Ed offices in Manhattan. TED being, the famous TED, and TED Ed being their little educational spin-off that makes these really cool educational videos. So thank you to Logan from TED Ed for making this possible and giving me a bit of space, giving Hello Internet a bit of space.
This is the same Logan who we mentioned on a previous episode who started that very interesting Call Me Ishmael project on YouTube where people leave voicemails about books that they like.
And I tell you what, people really need to check that out, Gray. I think it is such a clever idea, and it's not getting the traction that it should on YouTube. Like, the view numbers aren't high enough for what a cool idea it is. And yet, away from YouTube, talking to Logan, there's all sorts of other cool projects and spin-off things going on, and bookstores and libraries, and all these people are so excited about the project. And he's got so many balls in the air now as a result of it. He's having all this success. And yet on YouTube, where you can just go and listen to these things for free and watch these nifty little videos, it's not getting the traction it should. So go and check it out. I tell you what, though, I'm here saying how great it is. Go and check it out, etc., etc. And yet I am yet to leave a voicemail about a book on it. So I'm not practicing what I preach.
Oh yeah?
And do you know what has stopped me?
What?
I can't choose a book. Because it's not like just recommending a book that you think is good. I've kind of got this impression that all the people that call me Ishmael and leave a message always have these really touching stories about how a book changed their life or made a real impression on them. And I've read lots of books and I liked lots of them, but I can't think of one book that has that changed me somehow.
Really?
Have you got one? If you were going to do a Call Me Ishmael, what book would you pluck from the shelf? What's the book that you would do a 2-minute message about and say this book is important and it meant something to me?
Well, Call Me Ishmael is high stakes. High intensity there because you're calling a voicemail service. You don't have the chance to go back and edit what you're saying. So you've got to do it all right all once. That's too high pressure for me. But
couldn't you record it and play it down?
Oh, you could fake it. Yes, yeah. You could totally. You know what? That never even occurred to me. You could totally fake it.
Or you could just talk to Logan because he's your mate and say, look, Can I just send you a file or something? But he probably wouldn't let you do that because the idea is that it is all phone call-y.
I think he has far too much integrity to allow me to cheat the system in that way.
Yeah, he's a pretty straight shooter.
I'm just honestly surprised that you can't think of a single book that has had a major influence on your life because you do read a significant amount.
Well, I mean, I don't. Yeah, maybe that overstates the case, but I do read books. But it's I read lots of books and think, oh, that was awesome and brilliant, or I wish I wrote that, or it makes me think about some cool space thing or sciencey thing or Mount Everest or something like that. There are lots of books that I read and go, that's awesome and I want everyone else to read it. But I can't think of a book that's got this amazing story that made me think, now I'm going to go and build an orphanage in South America, or now I'm going to... I can't think of anything that really has changed like me as a person immediately. I can think of lots of things that have inspired me and made me think about things, and and all those things chip away at you and change you, but I can't think of one book that was like, oh, wow, I'm going to change the course of my life now. Have you got one?
I have two. I have two books that I can say majorly changed the course of my life. One which is less interesting and one which is probably a little bit more interesting. So I'll go with the less interesting one first. The less interesting one is vastly more important in some ways, and that is Getting Things Done by David Allen, which I've mentioned before on the podcast as a book I really like. But that really was, no joke, the book that allowed me to transition from I'm an idiot who can't do anything into, oh, I'm an adult who can be organized and change the course of my life. I think that book definitely had the biggest single impact of any book that I ever read.
See, Logan could just lift that bit of the podcast and chuck it on Call Me Ishmael.
We have licensing agreements, I think, if he's trying to.
Oh no, he'll have to give us a big whack of cash, of course.
We can't just take that. Yeah. But yes, that one is far less interesting. But it is really true. I feel like there is the time in my life before I read Getting Things Done, and there is a time in my life after I've read Getting Things Done, and the people on either side of that divide are hugely, hugely different people.
Oh man, I just feel like I should maybe read that book at some point. Would it help me from what you know of me?
No, I don't think anything would help you, Brady. I'm going to be honest here. You just are the way you are, and I don't think anything can help you. But I also don't know if you need anything to help you. You seem pretty happy.
All right. What's your other book?
The book that started me down the course of deciding that I wanted to do physics as a major and going to the college that I went to do physics, which was Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time, which I read in high school.
No, you understood that book.
Okay, well, I'll be clear here. I read the illustrated edition back in high school, which is beautiful, by the way. I still, in my parents' house, I still actually have it. It's this big, big book that has these amazing diagrams on all the pages. The diagrams, they really help. If you're going to read A Brief History of Time, I highly suggest you get the illustrated version. I was kind of not really aware of physics before then. It happens to be the way that my school did physics. Each year of science was all by itself. So in freshman year, we just did, I think it was all geology. And then sophomore year, we just did all biology, and junior year was all chemistry. So you didn't have like how I taught here, where it's mixed up every year. So I was kind of floating along, not really aware of physics. And then I read that book and I really liked it. So that one definitely is a book that I can point to as having a big impact on my life.
Cool. All right. Well, if you enjoyed hearing that little vignette from Gray and you want to hear hundreds and hundreds of more people talk about books they liked, check out Call Me Ishmael, and that will make Logan happy and means he will let me use this booth again on future trips to New York to record Hello Internet. And that's endgame for me.
It's endgame for you?
Yeah. And it's a good site, and Logan's a good man. Let's move on, though. And he has had more than enough promotion for nothing. For nothing, he got that. And I've bought him tickets for the baseball tonight.
Baseball, that's the one with shuttlecocks, right?
No, baseball. Baseball's the one where they throw the ball.
Oh, they throw the ball. They don't bowl it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to the Yankees versus the Mets.
Does anybody die in those games? Do they shoot the players in front of you if they don't do well? Is that how that works?
Not that I've ever seen. I hope they don't. No. You don't mind baseball, do you? Do you like baseball?
Oh, so boring. So boring.
Yeah, just boring. But you understand that. But you do kind of understand the rules of that one, don't you?
Yeah.
Just because it's in your DNA, isn't it?
Because I had to play it in gym, and I would always remember left field is the position that you want when you play in gym, and you don't want to participate in this sport, right? I would always go for far left field, and then just stand out there.
There's no such thing as far left field.
Daydreaming, looking at, and then every once in a while the ball would come near me, and like, oh God.
I would pay money to see you playing baseball. That would just make me laugh. I'm just imagining you swinging a bat and then running to first base, and it actually is making me smile.
The problem was always that being in the outfield and trying to do like the catches and fast passes, I could, that was just hopeless. Actually, just hitting the ball, I was pretty good at. And that's super satisfying if you play baseball, even for someone who has no interest in sports and would never do it on their own. When you hit the baseball, that crack of the bat is a very satisfying, enjoyable experience. So I have played baseball.
Oh, I feel a little bit proud of you then.
Why?
The thing I can't imagine though is you running. Like, you running just doesn't come into my head very easily.
I was very briefly on the track team because I had to be.
Really?
Yeah. This is a parental requirement that I try some sports. And I don't know why, but somehow I thought track would be the easiest because it wasn't a team sport. So I was thinking everybody could just leave me alone. Like, oh, I just have to run around in this circle, but I don't have to interact with the other people. Fine, I can do this. But I really hated track and I gave it up as soon as I possibly could. But I was very briefly on the track team.
I can't imagine your running action. I just can't imagine what that would be like.
It's amazing, Brady. I don't like to run, but when I do run, it is majestic.
You're good, you've got it down.
It's like watching Tom Cruise run. It's just amazing. It's cinematic is what it is. I just choose not to.
Well, let's crack out the high-speed camera sometime and make some videos of you running.
No, that's not going to happen. Not ever. Sorry.
All right.
Okay, we have to move on because you have written in the show notes bra shopping. Are you shopping for bras, Brady?
This is a topic that I am already regretting.
Too late now.
Yeah, let's do this. It came about the other day. Basically, my wife really enjoys shopping for clothes.
Mm-hmm.
She's a very fashionable woman.
She is?
I quite enjoy going with her, and she'll be looking at dresses and all the different things that she looks at, and she asks my opinion, and I try to give them, and what I really enjoy is sort of going off on my own and finding something that I think she will like and like bringing it to her and going, what do you think of this? I think this is your style. And she'll be like, oh, it is. Yeah. Like, I feel really proud when I manage that. And she likes what I found. So I'm not averse to clothes shopping, but there is a problem. And I know this is like, who would this apply to? This must surely only apply to men who have female partners. I can't think what other configuration this would cause the same level of awkwardness to. But anyway, being a man who has a female partner, when she ventures into the bra section of the shop, I find this a very, very difficult and very awkward to know what to do. Because at that point, I can't browse on my own, really. Because I think that looks a bit unusual if
You could.
Yeah, I could, of course. And I know there are men who often buy lingerie for their partner, but
you don't need to stick to traditional gender stereotypes here, Brady. You can be a new modern man.
I know. And but also when I've got a really bad habit of I'm quite tactile when I'm shopping, so I like to stroke all the fabric and stuff. And I think if I'm
just like you stroke the microphone.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a bit of a fidgeter. So if I'm looking at dresses and that, I feel quite comfortable sort of stroking all the dresses and the fabric to see what they're like. But if I'm in the bra section, I feel like I would look a bit wrong if I'm stroking underwear.
No. Brady, you have to touch it to know the quality of the material. So I don't see you should definitely go ahead with this behavior.
I don't feel comfortable, but I know this is my insecurities, all right? And the other thing is I find it if I'm in the dress section, I'm quite comfortable making eye contact with other women and smiling at them and, how you going? But if I'm in the bra section, suddenly I feel like if I'm looking at another woman shopping and she's looking at bras and then she looks up and sees me looking at her, I feel a bit creepy. Oh, I'm watching you bra shop. I feel like a bit of a weirdo. And I know I'm not. And again, I know this is just my insecurities. But anyway, while this was happening, the thing that occurred to me was, what does CGP Grey do? What would you do? Do you, because I find myself in this situation and it just seemed like an awkward situation. And I thought to myself, I bet Grey doesn't even do this. I bet he just walks away. But then I realised I didn't know. So I thought, I'm going to ask Grey.
Okay.
Do you bra shop on your own with your wife? Do you have a bra section policy?
Okay. So here's the thing with us, Brady. I think we are sometimes so different, we can't even conceive of the level of difference in the other person. Because I dimly knew what you wanted to talk about with this. And I was like, oh, okay, I have a guess of where he's going. But right out of the gate, your story was just totally different from what I was expecting.
What were you expecting?
Well, I was expecting the much more standard version of this story, which is that you get dragged shopping with your partner, right? And that you have to tag along, and then you find yourself in the bra section and, oh, isn't it embarrassing? I didn't realize that you were gleeful to go along on the shopping expedition. Not only gleeful, but actively participating in your partner's shopping expedition, hunting for dresses, bringing them back. This is amazing to me. I can't even understand this.
Well, I wouldn't say gleeful. Like, clearly the thing I want to do is like look at the gadgets and technology and things, or look at like things that are interesting to me. And my wife and I share a lot of things we find interesting, like, you know, furniture maybe, or we both like antiques, and we both like, and because she wants to look at clothes, I'm happy to do that. And like I said, I see it as a little challenge. I wouldn't like beg to go clothes shopping, but I don't even like clothes shopping for men's clothes. But I would do it. So I wouldn't say I beg to do it or gleeful, but I do it. But it is exactly as you described. Then when I find myself in the bra section, like, I'm supportive and like, you know, I get it, supportive. No, I'm willing to do it because, you know, I want to help my wife and join her for the expedition. But that's the area where I suddenly feel out of my depth and a bit like, I just haven't learned how to do it yet. I haven't learned how to do it cool because I'm just maybe not a cool guy. So where are you? You just don't go clothes shopping at all, or like, where do you stand on all this?
Many, many years ago, before I met the woman who would become my wife, when I was involved in relations with other women, I remember getting dragged along for clothes shopping. And I think because I was a younger person, a person who wasn't thinking about how their life is going and the way things work in the world, I just went along with this because it's what you see everybody else do. Mm-hmm. You go into any clothing shop primarily for women, and you will see a bunch of men kind of loitering around. Yeah. Usually burdened like alpacas, right, with bags slung over their backs that they are carrying. Mm-hmm. And so I did this too as a much younger person. But one day there was a particular shopping trip which lasted a very long time. I don't remember, but I feel like it was a full work day's worth of shopping for clothing with a particular person. And this was supposed to be the weekend. Like, oh, I was going to have a whole day to myself. No, you have a whole day under fluorescent lighting, looking at clothing that's not even for you, and having to have your input asked on 1,000 tiny decisions. That's really the exhausting part of this. It's not even the being there, it's the 1,000 little decisions. It just melts your brain into a pool of nothingness. After this particularly long shopping event, I was pushed over my limit, and I decided, hey, wait a minute. I don't have to do this. I don't need to do this. I don't need to give up my weekend to go clothing shopping for another person. If someone asked me to go clothing shopping with them, the answer is just no. No, I'm not going clothing shopping. I have no interest in this, and I will be of no help, and it will be just a total misery, and no, I'm not going to do this. So from that day onward, I have not gone clothing shopping with any of the partners in my life. Now, very luckily, my wife never even knew about this policy because she never even asked me to go clothing shopping with her. It would never occur to her to bring me along clothing shopping. So this works out very well. She doesn't want me to go, and I don't want to go, and we're both very happy.
Hang on. She didn't ask you, but do you know she doesn't want you? Do you think maybe she might get pleasure from you being there and helping and giving?
No, she does not want me there.
But she doesn't want you there probably because you're a grumpy guts who doesn't like it. But would she want you there if you were like being helpful and supportive and interested? Like,
she doesn't want me there because she doesn't want to be there either. She also wants to go shopping and get stuff done as fast as possible. And when you do it with two people, it's like, oh, now it's like an outing. It's just much slower. And something that never crossed my mind. But my wife has very often complained that when she goes shopping, she has to deal with all of these partners of the other women in the stores blocking the aisles, getting in the way because they don't know where to stand, and because they're in the bra section, they can't make eye contact. You can't make like the "can you move to the side" gesture because they're just looking at their feet on the on the floor, trying to get out of the way. So my wife is frustrated by the other men in the women's clothing department who obviously don't want to be there, who are just sad sacks, who are beasts of burden holding on to a bunch of bags. And I actually, you know what? Let me take this moment, right? Let me use the power of the podcast here.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a guy listening to me right now and your arms are getting sore and tired from the bags of clothing that you are holding right now, and you're listening to a podcast to try to escape the horrible drudgery of following your partner around on a shopping expedition on the weekend, perhaps it's Sunday, you could be doing all kinds of great stuff, watching sports ball on the TV instead or something. I don't know, whatever you do, World of Warcrafting. You still have to finish this today because you've already agreed to this. But in the future, you don't have to. You don't have to go along with this. You're a grown person. Your partner is presumably a grown person. You can each shop for clothing on your own, separately. You don't have to do this together. Live a freer, happier life. Say no.
Can I now speak to those same people?
Sure.
If you're a man out shopping with a woman, you have a female partner, and that is something that gives her pleasure, enjoy it as well. Enjoy her pleasure. Doing things together makes you closer, and doing things that make her happy with you is a positive experience.
Doing things you both enjoy is a positive experience.
If you don't enjoy it, but she wants you to be there for support, be it moral or financial, also
even better.
also enjoy that, because one day you will both be old and slow and unhappy, and you're not going to sit there thinking, I wish I'd done more things on my own. You're probably going to sit there thinking, I wish I did more things with my partner. And finally, one final thing. If you, like me, find yourself in the bra section and you have figured out how to make that work, do let me know, because I can't figure it out, and obviously Gray is going to be no help whatsoever.
I am like the most help that I could possibly be. I want to give you time back and take you out of this situation for which there's no way to win.
I don't want to spend less time with my wife.
I don't think there are very many men who have on their deathbed thought, I wish I did more clothing shopping with my wife.
Well,
that's the way you're presenting that there. I don't think that's accurate.
Well, you're right. We are quite different, and pretty much I kind of half expected this result. Like when I sent you that text from the bra section at the shop, which was awkward in itself because I was taking out my phone, which also doubles as a camera these days.
Right.
I did think, I bet Gray never even finds himself in these bra sections.
Nope.
Because he's just stubborn and would just refuse to be anywhere he doesn't want to be.
Stubborn. That's it. You always turn these things at the very end into something more than they are. But no. That's what you always do. That's your
That's
MO.
my thing.
Yeah,
That's my thing.
I know what you're up to. Oh, let's take a
my
particular example, and now we'll just broaden it out into, he never does anything that he doesn't like for his partner ever. Though that's not at all the situation.
I know. But I do just enjoy it anyway.
You do love to rile. Yeah.
I like to leave you twisting in the wind.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You want to get the final word in, and you look like, oh, look at you. You're such a hero, Brady. And oh, look at him. He's such a jerk.
I'm not a hero. I'm a creepy, weird guy staring at his shoes in the bra section.
Yeah, you are.
That's not a hero.
I can save you from that.
Okay. Well, thank you for hearing me out. And your advice is kind of what I expected, but it's still interesting to hear.
Can't you just wait somewhere else?
Yeah, but it's not like it takes that long.
Sometimes if my wife and I are out and she happens to see something in a store that she's interested in, she'll pop in really quick to take a look. Many stores have what is very obviously set up as the man waiting area. They'll have like a little chair at the front, which is so clearly for husbands and things to wait in. Like these expeditions with my wife last minutes because she knows that my patience will run very short. But surely there is some place that you can just retreat for a few moments while the bra shopping is being done. Like you don't really need to be there.
If it's going to be lengthy and there's another place within like eye line, sometimes I will go. But I don't know. I think I think my wife appreciates sort of input, and she wants to do things together. And Lord knows, I'm in New York for 2 weeks, and Lord knows I spend enough time away on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I think we have spent more time talking about bras than I thought we ever would in the history of this podcast. So.
Today, Hello Internet is sponsored by Audible.com. It's almost impossible to believe at this point that someone might not know what Audible is, but in case you don't, they are, quote, a leading provider of spoken audio information and entertainment. Basically, audiobooks. I listen to a lot of them. You should listen to a lot of them. As Brady and I discussed before, a good book can change your life. We were mentioning science-y stuff before, and so today I'm going to pick a science-y recommendation, which is a short history of nearly everything by Bill Bryson. This is a different book from A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking, which of course is also on Audible because they have 100,000 plus books. But today I'm recommending A Short History of Nearly Everything by Bill Bryson. It is a very enjoyable listen that is kind of an overview of all of the history of all of the various sciences put together. And Bryson, who I have recommended before as an author that I quite like, does a really great job of just approaching all of these various topics, and he has a unique knack for explaining things in a very funny way. And big portions of the book take place here in London at the Natural History Museum, which, if you've ever read the book, visiting the museum then is a much more in-depth experience. Now, I read this book in print, and I also listened to the audiobook, which is done by Richard Matthews, who just has a great narration voice that really adds to the book. And as you may know, if you are plugged into the Amazon ecosystem, you can switch back and forth between the two. Read it on your Kindle, Paperwhite, and then listen to it on your audio player of choice. And Amazon will keep everything synchronized between the two. So if you want to listen to it, Audible has it with a zillion books in every genre covering just about everything you could possibly look for. Now, if you go to audible.com/Hello Internet, you can listen to A Brief History of Nearly Everything by Bryson for free and get a 30-day trial at Audible. Going to audible.com/Hello Internet lets Audible know that you came from our show, so they keep supporting the show, and it gets you a free book. It's a pretty good deal for everybody. So go check it out. Link will be in the show notes for you. Brief History of Nearly Everything, Bill Bryson. Learn about a bunch of interesting science history with very pleasant narration.
Shall we move on to something else that is in the area of retail?
Okay, we'll move on to something else. What's next?
And do you know what it is? It's a Brady's paper cut.
Oh, Brady's paper cut. It's been a long time since a Brady's paper cut.
Brady's paper.
Such a little song.
Well, we have got a song. There is a Brady's paper cut song, but
oh yes, of course.
Yeah, there is like a whole thing. People can go and watch that if they want. It lives elsewhere. Today, my paper cut is automated checkouts.
Mm-hmm.
Or automated self-serve checkouts. Is that what they're called?
I mean, like at the supermarket.
Or at various stores, but yeah, at supermarkets and other stores that are...
Or little convenience stores, things like that.
Yeah. I cannot tell you how much I dislike these things.
Oh, no, come on, man.
And my dislike for them is ever increasing.
Ah. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I shouldn't interrupt straight away. I just can't... All right. Tell me what it is.
I'm just reading a few little subtle nuances in your reaction here.
Listen, they might be one of the greatest inventions of mankind. They're just
I think they're
like
a retrograde step.
on a daily basis. There's fewer inventions have made my life faster, better, easier, more pleasurable on a daily experience than the automated retail.
For me,
checkouts.
they've made things slower and less pleasurable.
You just don't know how to communicate with the machines, I think, is the problem. Okay, just tell me what it is. What is it what's so bad about the best thing ever?
I do find them a bit finicky, and like sometimes they don't work properly and you've got to call for help anyway. I feel like they're like slow because I'm not very fast at, putting things in the bags anyway. So it slows me down. Yeah. I find like sometimes they don't scan, or I can't find the barcode, or then something goes wrong and the person's got to come over with their magic swipey thing to override the machine and give permission for something, and then you've got to do everything yourself with the paying, and it won't accept the money right, or there's a problem with the card. And also because they're becoming so omnipresent and they're having less and less real staff, they're becoming just massive queues for them anyway. So like you're still waiting in a huge queue to get to it anyway. And it's taking away, yes, here I'm going to say it, it's taking away another level of human interaction where I can just like be talking to a human who's experienced at scanning things and is experienced at using bags and can do it quicker than me anyway. And it's just it's a nice moment where you get served by someone and say thank you. Even if you don't have that fake hello, how's your day? It's just an interaction with a human that I like. They do my head in. I dislike them, and they've been around for a while now, and my feelings towards them are not softening. I'm hating them more. Like a lot of technologies, when they're new, I'm like, oh, how does this work? And then after a month or two, I'm like, oh, I could never have lived without it. Automated checkouts are not going in that direction. Automated checkouts are going in the opposite direction. And I know you're Mr. Robots will take over the world, and of course you're going to think the opposite to me, but it is a paper cut of mine on a daily basis, and I'm hating them more and more.
The robots taking people's jobs thing is a whole separate issue. Putting aside the massive unemployment these things might cause, which wouldn't be good, from my own personal selfish experience, they're just the greatest. Almost, aside from the Starbucks and as we've discussed many times, but like a whole bunch of the little stores on my errands, routines, places I need to go have the automated checkouts. And it's great. I can hit like 4 stores without having to talk to anybody. And if you know how to use them, they're faster. I mean, I do see, little old ladies get confused with the scanner and it yells at them and then the person needs to come over. And of course, for that person, it takes way longer than it does if you can use the machine competently. But if you know what you're doing, it's just the greatest. You bam, right in the store, grab your thing, scan them, boop, boop, boop. Here's the card. It's even more magic when they have the contactless cards here. So you just tap the card happily on top of the machine. It goes right, everything's fine. The transaction's through. Out you go. You don't even have to pick up the receipt. It's so nice. It's so great. I love everything about it.
And if you don't put it in the bag in 3.2 seconds, it's like, oh, you have a bagging area malfunction problem. They're always telling you off and they're yelling at you and barking instructions. And
this happened the first couple times I used a checkout machine, and now maybe 1 in 100 times now this thing happens where it goes, oh, you didn't put the bag in the checkout, you didn't misplace item in bagging area or whatever. But almost always you just take the thing out, put it back in, and it's fine 2 seconds later. This is not some huge problem unless you're just completely incapable of scanning and packing something at the same time.
Well, maybe that is me. I mean, I use them. Of course I use them. And I think I'm above average intelligence for my fellow man, or, at least somewhere near the middle. And I have problems with them. I don't enjoy them. And
why don't you go on the line for the people then? There's almost always a people line.
I will always go in the line for the people if I can. if one exists and it's not onerous compared to if it's a 50-50 or a 60-40 proposition, I will go to the person. The other day, I was using one just 2 days ago here in New York, and it didn't work. There was a problem with it, and I think it was the machine's fault. And I was only buying 2 or 3 items, and I'm like, I turned to the help. There was a woman behind the counter, another woman there, and I'm like, this isn't working. And they're like, oh, sorry, you're right, it's not working. And I said, can you just put this through? And she was like, no, go over to the other one. The other one over there is working. And I said, and I was standing in front of her with the stuff. And I said, no, can't you just put this through? I'm standing in front of you now. And the staff were scared of dealing with me. And they're like, no, go over there and use the machine. I'm like, you've got the thing right in front of you. You were serving someone 2 seconds ago. And I just shoved it in her face and said, put it through.
These are the charming human interactions that you miss. People are afraid of you in the stores.
Well, yeah, because these were CGP grey people who were like, oh, no, we don't want to, we just want you to go and use machines. It's like...
Mm-hmm. That's right. CGP grey people, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think that was your social skills failing there. I of course, no surprise to anybody, am resentful of, there's one supermarket in particular which should obviously have self-checkout machines that I sometimes have to use, and it doesn't. It's like, oh, great. You just have a bunch of humans here. This is the worst. But my most frequent supermarket, I'm irritated because they only have a single line that feeds into both machines and humans. And that's, oh, great. Now I don't have the choice. But I am the total weirdo who, when I get to the front of the line, if one of the humans waves me over, I will let the person behind me go ahead. And I will wait for a machine. I would much rather have the machine than an actual person. It does sometimes seem a bit awkward if I happen to wave a couple people through in a row. And they're like, no, I'd much rather use the machine. This way I also don't have, some person who's touching other people all day long, touching their cards, touching their things, then touching my things as well. No, thank you. This way I handle the bags, I check it out on the machine, and I never have any problems with the machines, or exceedingly rarely. Exceedingly rarely. It's great. It's absolutely great.
All right.
I think you just need to figure out how to competently use a machine.
Yeah, and maybe you need to figure out how to competently talk to human beings.
Nope, I don't need to. The future's going my way on this one. Right? Everything's coming up CGP Grey here.
Yeah, you're right. Everything's coming up grey. You're right. Our world is getting greyer by the day. Ain't that the truth?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Soon we'll live in a world with no colour whatsoever.
I am very happy that once again, the application that runs my entire life, OmniFocus, is back sponsoring the show. OmniFocus is a complete task management system for your life. If you want to just keep simple to-do list items, OmniFocus can do that. If, like me, you want to have hundreds of projects and thousands of actions all tracked together in one system and have crazy, complicated, repeating templates that use external scripting methods, OmniFocus can do that. But it doesn't have to. It can be exactly the amount of to-do list that you need. You need a lot, it can be a lot. You need a little, it can be a little. And it's everywhere you need it to be. All day long, OmniFocus is open on my Mac. I actually have it set up so that when my computer turns on, OmniFocus automatically turns on. And you can also have OmniFocus on your phone and your iPad and now your fancy Apple Watch. And it all syncs together with their Omnipresence system, which is custom designed just for OmniFocus and a bunch of the other amazing programs by the Omni Group, most of which I also use. One of the biggest features for me about OmniFocus is the way it can slice and dice all of the to-dos that you have so that you can only see the things that are relevant to you right now. The simple version of this is that you can just see errands that you need to run all at once or phone calls that you need to make all at once without having to look at every single thing that's in your system. But I like to use this for certain kinds of things that I'm working on. So just with the press of a button, I can see all of the to-do items I have that are related to Hello Internet, or I can see all of the to-do items that are related to my YouTube videos. But perhaps one of the most useful ways to divide up my own projects is that I can just see all of the tasks that I can do when I'm kind of brain dead. I don't have a lot of thinking power, but I can still do kind of boring, non-thinking tasks. At that very moment, I don't want to search through all of my projects for those sorts of items. I just want to press a button, boom, I can see all the things that I can do without having to think too hard about it and just grind away. I have tried every task management program and every to-do list manager under the sun, and OmniFocus is the one that I am going with and the one that I really rely on. Keeping up with the theme of books that have changed your life, Getting Things Done, the book that I mentioned before that turned me basically into a grown-up, OmniFocus is designed, if you want it to work as a perfect implementation of getting things done. So you want to turn around your life? Great. Buy Getting Things Done and buy a copy of OmniFocus. Your whole life will be better. Unless you're Brady. Brady can't change at this point. But you can. So right now, go click on the link in our show notes. Check out OmniFocus. I'm going to send you to the one for the iPhone just to get started on something and give it a whirl. And you can just try it because OmniFocus comes with a money-back guarantee. You don't like it? Get in touch with the Omni Group. They'll work to refund your purchase. How many apps on the App Store do that? Basically nobody. Nobody does that, but Omni Group is so confident in their products that they are willing to do that. Go to the show notes, click right now, change your life.
So, let's do topics. Because I think...
Do we have topics?
Yeah, the top topic here says Brady is frustrating. I believe this relates to the Apple Watch.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's do Gray's Apple Watch corner.
First, we're doing Brady is frustrating corner because, dear internet, this is for you, by the way. I am frustrated on your behalf because Brady and I, we do this podcast together, and sometimes things come up that are interesting. And I think in those moments, it is useful to take notes about the interesting thing that you might want to talk about on the podcast, because we're often recording, 10 days or a week and a half after some event has actually occurred and you forget, and it's really useful to have notes. But Brady doesn't take notes, and I'm trying to get him to take notes for you, listener, so that you can have a more pleasurable experience. But every time Brady texts me about something interesting happening, I text back and say, take notes. And what do you say, Brady?
No,
I'm not going to take notes. Because you disrespect the audience. That's why you don't take notes.
No, I don't. If you were a better interviewer, I wouldn't need notes because you would massage information out of me.
You know I'm a terrible interviewer. You know that.
Yeah, you are.
I am the worst. And as far what you do when you interview people, to me seems like witchcraft. I have no idea what's happening or how you do it. And this is a skill that I will never have. So this is why I beg of you to take notes when you're doing something interesting, but you don't. That's Brady is frustrating corner.
So what Gray's talking about is shortly after the last podcast, when Gray had seen the Apple Watch and I had not, I booked an appointment to go and try some on and, do that whole experience they do.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I had any intent of buying one, but just because I wanted to see it and look at it and play with it. So I went along with my wife, and we both had, a little half an hour in the store with the Apple Watch man, who enthusiastically showed us everything and let us try everything on. And we did all that, and it's done.
What did you think of the experience?
I can't really remember. What would you like to know? What would you like to know? I will answer all your questions, as long as it's a little bit more specific than just what did you think of the experience.
But we've already established I'm terrible at asking good questions.
Okay, well
I just want to hear. What I would want you to do is go through your notes, but you have no notes.
Let's cut to the. Let's start at the end. Let's cut to the chase.
I have to go look back at the text message conversation. Scroll back. Yeah.
My current position is, having done it, is still I don't want to get one, and have no intention of getting one. So that's the headline. Like a good newspaper man, I'm doing the inverted pyramid and just getting straight. Like the newspaper story is starting with Brady Harron will not buy an Apple Watch.
No watch for me, says Brady Harron.
Says Harron. Yeah.
Says Harron. Yeah, there we go. Even better.
Nice work, Gray. Nice headline. No watch for me, says Harron.
Hey, you got to start with the strong word in the newspaper, right? And then it's all downhill from that headline. It's like, oh, wait.
Yeah,
this,
it should be more Harron slams watch.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm not going to get one. There's your headline. My impressions are that it was I expected it to be nicer looking than I expected, and it was, if that makes sense.
Wait, okay. I have to parse that for a second.
Yeah, just think about it.
You wait.
I didn't like what it looked like in pictures, but I knew when I saw it for real, I would think, wow, that does look better than the pictures. And indeed, that is what happened.
So you knew that your expectations were lower than they should be.
I knew it would be more impressive in real life, and it was.
Than you were expecting it to be.
Yeah, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. You're just hanging me out to dry now.
I am not. I swear to God, I am not hanging you out to dry. I feel like we have two levels of expectations here, and I'm just trying to figure out how you hold them in your brain. But let's move past that because we'll get derailed. But I am not trying to confuse you. I am genuinely. There's some kind of weird recursion here in your expectations that I can't quite unravel.
The Apple Watch was much nicer to look at in real life than it is in the pictures on the website.
Right.
And that is what I expected the case to be.
So what did you try on for yourself?
I tried on loads of them. I tried on lots and lots, different sizes and different bands. And the thing I thought was, let's not talk about the watch itself for a minute, but just talk about the bands. Really, it's all about the bands, isn't it? Going to the shop. You look at what it does, and then it's like this whole band experience.
Yes.
Some of the things I thought about the bands, I was impressed by the ability to change links so easily, which has never been the case with watches. I was very impressed with the mechanism whereby you can change the bands themselves on the watch. I thought it was a lovely little piece of engineering. Most of the bands, I was impressed by how nice they felt on the hand. A lot of them felt very pleasurable on the hand, especially those kind of leathery ones. They felt nice. I didn't like how some of the bands looked. The Milanese one, I think, is a debacle. I don't know why anyone will get that, but anyway. But some people like it, so.
That one seems to be a very divisive one.
Yeah.
I would say that one definitely seems to be very divisive because I've had the same conversation with a few people where, to my eye, that looks like a very feminine watch band, but people seem to disagree. And when I first heard it, I was surprised. I was shocked that anybody could possibly disagree. But this is where fashion is just a strange thing. Everybody has very personal reactions to different kinds of bands. And I've heard people say things about the bands that I like where I think, oh, how could you possibly think that? But it's very, very weird. But I would bet the Milanese one is top on the people disagree in wildly different directions about it band.
I didn't like how it looked off or on the hand. Some of them, like I thought some of the metal link ones and the metal ones I would like, and then when I put them on my hand, I didn't like so much. If I was going to get one, I would probably get the leather band with the traditional buckle, funnily enough. That's the one that I felt looked the best on my hand.
I could see that working for you.
Yeah, I didn't expect that to be the case. I thought, because, I've got my watch has got like a steel band, like I wear a silvery steel band, but I didn't like how that looked in the Apple Watch so much. I still don't like how it looks as much as a normal watch, that kind of square look. I didn't use it enough to give you a fair assessment, but I didn't particularly enjoy the touching and the using of it. I didn't immediately like it. It didn't immediately seem hugely intuitive to me.
Which one did the missus like?
She liked the watches. She found it. She doesn't want to get one either, but she enjoyed it. She enjoyed looking at them and found them really interesting. And in some ways, I felt maybe she liked them more than me. And then, like I said, she knows nothing about them, about what they're made of or the pricing structure or how anything works. And after looking at them all, she's like, oh, can I try one of those goldy coloured ones on? And he said, oh, you can't try them on. And she's like, oh, they're the one. I quite like the look of that one, so I think I'd probably get that one. And then I was like, and then she was like, how much is that one? And then the guy said, all these thousands upon thousands. And she was like, you're joking.
Yeah, they start at £12,000 in the UK, I think.
So I then had to explain, they're made of actual gold. And, she's a smart woman, so she was like, oh, okay, well, of course.
Right.
She didn't realise they were made of actual gold. She just thought they were like goldy coloured. And it does raise an interesting question that if you don't like silvery coloured jewellery and you like goldy coloured jewellery, like some people are in camp silver or camp gold, and some people wear all gold jewellery, and there's no watch for them because you can't wear a silver watch if you wear all gold jewellery, because it clashes. So Apple have kind of left those people out in the dark, haven't they? They're like, I'm partly surprised there is no goldy coloured one that is affordable, but I see why there's not.
Yeah, you can see why they can't have a sports watch that is also gold.
Yeah, because the gold is all about the rich people showing off, and how can you prove you're a rich person if other people can have cheap gold coloured ones? So anyway, I went and looked at them, and I've gone and looked at them since again in the shop and had a little touch and a play. And
But your Omega Speedmaster is going to live indefinitely on your wrist. Is that the plan?
I love it more every day.
I am genuinely relieved to hear that. Genuinely relieved to hear that.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to know, or have I told you enough without notes?
My interviewer skills are lacking. But I feel like I get a sense of it. I'm not surprised about the classic one for you. I could definitely see that working as a look for you.
Most of the clasps are very clever. They have done very well with their little engineering novelties. They have done well. Like most of the clasps I liked, but I did like just the traditional looking one. I will say one other thing that I think about the watch before you talk a bit about it, because I know you'll have a few things to say, and that is, and I've seen other people discussing this. And I even wade into a Twitter discussion about it with the likes of John Gruber. And that is having the watch face show like a pretend mechanical watch. Like there's this chronograph setting. So you look at your screen and it's like a pretend watch, rendered on the watch. I don't see the point of that. I think it's really pointless and a little bit silly. Like I always say, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly. If you're going to have this electronic high-tech watch, don't have it rendering pretend old-fashioned watch faces on it. That seems really silly to me. That's the equivalent of having a fireplace or an aquarium on your TV. If you want an aquarium, get an aquarium. If you want to have a fireplace, get a fireplace. If you want to have like hands and second hands and a round face and the old-fashioned watch, get an old-fashioned watch. If you want to move with the times and get something high-tech and take the next step and maybe it's the way of the future, do that. But take advantage of the technology. Take advantage of the things a screen can do. Like, you don't have electronic versions of a rotary dial on your phone because that's an old-fashioned technology. And I think people having this like old-fashioned, if they want that kind of, Speedmaster chronography look on their wrist and it's just being rendered on a screen, I feel like that's a bit silly.
I may be mistaken, but didn't you record a Yule log on one of your channels for people to play on their computers at Christmas?
Yeah, and I did that because I was invited to do it, and I was also paid to do it.
Okay.
But also I did that. But I did that with like the twist of being able to like throw dangerous chemicals onto it and things like that.
But it's still a Christmas Yule log people would be playing on their computers at Christmas.
I also feel like that was a bit ironic, but I don't think people having the chronographs on their watch are doing it in a kind of ironic, funny way. I mean, those Yule log videos were like almost a spoof of Yule log videos in the same way that like my calculator unboxing videos are a spoof of unboxing videos. I feel like my Yule log video was like a parody of the fact people do that. Whereas I don't think people who are wearing these pretend chronographs on their iWatch are like parodying anything. I think they're doing it because it's the look they want. And I'm just not on board with it. I think if you're going to have an Apple Watch, utilize the screen. Like the people who have these sort of panel versions where they showed their time and their next appointment and stuff like that. Okay, like it's not for me, but I'm on board with that. You're utilizing the technology. But telling the time on this with pretend hands and all that sort of thing, which, you have hands on a clock because of the technology necessitated it, the way watches and the mechanism where watches work necessitates it. It's no longer necessary on a computer. I don't know. It just feels a bit silly to me. It feels like having a, you don't have modern, well, you probably do actually, but I wouldn't have a modern grandfather clock, which instead of a grandfather clock has a screen on there that has like a pretend pendulum swinging and pretend hands moving around.
I see what you mean.
That feels stupid to me. And it feels a bit the same way with the watch. I feel like, don't have an old fashioned. And I know there's a bit more nuance to the discussion, and I've read a little bit about and I've heard what John Gruber said about it on his podcast and what he's written about it. And, I understand the argument. I'm just definitely not on his side.
I missed your Twitter interaction, so I'm not sure what his argument would be, but I'm thinking. So for me, I am very aware of time as existing in this circle that goes round and round.
That is part of his argument. That's how he's used to reading time, and he doesn't want to unlearn that, which I don't agree with. I think you can unlearn it very quickly. And just so you're in the picture, the other thing he says is he thinks the watch isn't too sort of skeuomorphic or however you say it. Like he says, it's not like they're rendering shadows and things like that. So he thinks it doesn't go too far down that path.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The skeuomorphism argument has never been interesting to me. It's just like, does it look good or does it not look? I don't really. That's not. I only care about skeuomorphism once you talk about skeuomorphism enforcing limitations, as famously the Apple podcast did when it was pretending to be a reel-to-reel tape player and allowed you to do basically nothing because they wanted to preserve the metaphor that looks like a reel-to-reel tape player. It's like, what are you doing? This is stupid. Or the thing that I find most frustrating is on the kind of skeuomorphism on digital calendars where you can only scroll a month at a time. And so you have to flip back and forth between two virtual pages when you're looking at an event that's at the end of April and the beginning of the next month. It's like, no, you can make this a continuous scroll. And so that's why that's the kind of skeuomorphism that I find really frustrating. There's no reason for the month to exist as a page on a computer. But the way things look with shadows and stuff, I've never really cared about that. But
Okay.
I am aware that for me, like a digital readout, I have always found somehow harder to read. There's something about it being overly precise that bothers me. Mm-hmm. And some people have noticed when I take screenshots on occasion of my computer, I don't have a normal clock in the upper right-hand corner. I have something that's called a fuzzy clock, where normally it would display the digits. Right now, it actually just has a few words, and it says 8:05. So the clock on my computer always writes out a sentence like that. It'll say 6:45, and then it will say 6:10, then it'll say 6:00, or it'll say noon. And I find that a million times easier to look at and to have a sense of the time than something that says 6:37. And there's something about, like, I can't deal with the precision of the minute. It's too precise. I don't need to know it. And it's almost like somehow that extra precision slows me down. And so that's why I really do like circular clock faces as well, because you can look at it. It's like I have a sense of the time without needing to know the precision of the time.
Is that because knowing a precise time would kind of add to your cognitive load, or it would cause you stress and you want to avoid that stress?
I wouldn't say it causes stress. I'm just aware that there's something about looking at digital number clocks that is fractionally slower every time I do it, which makes no sense because it should be more immediately readable, but it isn't. It isn't. And it's probably just because I grew up with circular watches, looking at circular clocks in school and watching them go round and round and, praying for the end of the day and knowing the shape of the clock when you could finally be free and go home and not have to do any of this nonsense anymore.
So if you'd grown up with clocks which showed like the face of a bear when it was 3:00 and then the face of a giraffe when it was 4:00 and...
Yeah, I'm sure I would be thinking, oh, it's almost bear o'clock now. Thank God, and I would keep that up.
So it's almost like a pictorial way of telling time rather than a...
Yeah,
somewhere between
that's
the two.
what it is. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of the Gruber argument too, I think, to some. It's just what he's used to. It's just his way of telling time. But I don't know. I don't think it's utilizing the technology, and I think that's a behavior that could be pretty easily unlearned. I grew up using a rotary phone and dialing phone numbers by putting my finger in the 3 and then moving my finger down to the 9, and I unlearned that pretty quickly when I had buttons. So I don't know. It doesn't quite wash for me, and I think making the watch try to be like these old-fashioned watches is just... I think it's not the way to go,
So the reason this is particularly funny is because right on my watch right now, I actually happen to be using the chronograph face of an Apple Watch.
So you are wearing an Apple Watch. You haven't told anyone that yet.
I am wearing an Apple Watch right now, and
Okay.
I don't actually normally use the chronograph. I don't like the way it looks, but I thought, ooh, let me switch over to this and let me just use it for timing the podcast.
And tell me your thoughts. Tell me your thoughts on it.
It is we are in 1 hour, 32 minutes, 17 seconds right now. So I'll just have to give first impressions because my watch arrived just a little bit over 24 hours ago. So I have had kind of a day and a half with it.
And yes, Gray did not tell me, everyone. He didn't tell me. He didn't send me a text.
Okay. Listen, yesterday we were just trying to coordinate the time to get this, and who was not replying to my text messages? You. I literally had no time except minutes before this podcast in which to possibly tell you that I had gotten an Apple Watch.
You could have sent the text. You didn't know if I was getting them or not.
You were busy offline. I sent text messages to 2 different addresses. I sent an email. I didn't get a response until this morning. I felt deeply hurt. But I didn't know where you were. I wasn't going to randomly start some conversation. Hey, let's talk about my new Apple Watch. Maybe you're busy dealing with some problem. I have no idea.
If I got an Apple Watch, I'd text you straight away. I'd say, because you're like my Apple Watch mate. So I'd be like, great, guess what I'm wearing? Guess what I've got? Like, I'd be so excited.
We literally had no time in which to possibly discuss this until this podcast.
Not true, but anyway.
That is 100% true. I will not let you deceive our listeners in this manner. There was no time in which we could have discussed this.
I'm not saying discuss. I'm just saying tell me you've got it.
I told you right before we started to record.
No, you didn't. I saw it on your wrist.
No, you said you don't have a watch, and then I said yes, I do, and showed it to you. I have the recording. Maybe I don't have the recording.
I saw the band. And you thought it looked different.
If I have the recording, I'm going to put it in right now. But I told you first, I swear. This is the part where I'm either proved right or wrong.
No, you need the video to do it justice, because I saw the band on your hand and I thought it didn't look like your watch. And I'm like, what watch are you wearing?
No, I don't think that's what happened. But anyway, this is all a sideshow of us just bickering like old ladies.
Let's go clothes shopping.
I would love to not go clothes shopping with you, Brady. That would never happen.
Tell me about your first 24 hours with the watch, because you were not sure. Are you going to keep it and all that sort of stuff?
When I said I was relieved before that you were liking your Omega Speedmaster more and more, my first 24 hours with the watch definitely convinced me that you should never have one of these. This would be no good for you, and it is so easy to make it be just this notification addiction machine. So I thought, oh God, I hope Brady never gets one, because he will be even more consumed by beeps and buzzes and distractions and shiny things than he already is. So I'm very, very happy with your Omega Speedmaster.
Can I just clarify for you?
Mm-hmm.
I have unbelievably few notifications on my phone. Like, I don't get notifications for emails, or the only time my phone will ever make noise is if I get a text message.
Mm-hmm.
And I only get text messages really from you and my wife and maybe a couple of other mates. So, like...
Yeah, I do understand that. I'm just talking about, in general, your distracted nature.
Yeah, my problem is I take it out of my pocket all the time.
That's right. And now you have things... You'd have something on your wrist to constantly be checking and looking at.
Yeah.
To anybody who either has just gotten an Apple Watch or will be getting one very soon, I think the way to go into this is to almost pretend that additional apps don't exist. And really think of it as, I have bought a watch. It has changeable watch faces. I'm going to select one that I like. And this watch happens to be able to do a few additional very useful things. But a number of people that I have spoken with and that I've heard talking about the watch are trying to treat it as though it's a tiny iPhone. And it is so clearly not a tiny iPhone. But in the stores and with family members and with a bunch of other people, everybody is all about the apps. They're thinking, oh, what are the apps that can be on this phone? And I think that is the totally wrong way to think about this device. Mm-hmm. And I was trying today to think of a way to describe it. And the best I can come up with is that the Apple Watch, my first impression anyway, is this might be one of the most low-key technology purchases I have ever made. It's in my life, it's very helpful, but it's not attention-getting in the way that an iPhone is, and it's not trying to do a whole bunch of stuff that a way an iPhone is. It really feels like, hey, I'm a watch that is additionally useful in some clever ways. But I'm not trying to take over your whole life. So low-key is the best way that I can think of it, and I have really enjoyed it so far. Don't think about all the apps, people. Just think about it as a watch that happens to do some additional things. Pretend like those apps aren't even there. I think you'll have a much better experience with it kind of straight away.
Well, let me ask you this then, because your previous watch, which was a gift, wasn't it, from your wife? Or like your previous watch is very, very pretty, very beautiful, a very elegant, good-looking object. And to me, it was also a piece of jewelry. It was a statement you were making about your taste and things like that. Does the Apple Watch cut the mustard? Is the Apple Watch at the same level as that watch, or have you compromised? Do you think what you're wearing on your wrist now is less beautiful or less of a statement in that terms about the style of who you are?
Okay, well, this is a terribly unfair question at the moment, because I ordered 2 watches hoping that one of them would arrive before the one that I really want. So I actually have one that is basically my trial watch, see if it's something that I'm going to keep. So right now on my wrist, I am wearing the black aluminum sports watch,
right,
which I think is pretty good looking, but it is nowhere near the piece of jewelry of the watch that I am actually really have my heart set on, is the black link one that is not arriving until next year or so, according to delivery estimates. So that is the one that I would actually want that's the one that I think would look the best. Although I still haven't been able to try that on because the supplies are so low, they don't even have them in the stores. Like I keep checking in every once in a while with the Oxford Street store here about, do you guys have the black link? And they go, oh no, we don't have it.
Right.
Not even to try on. So that's why I really think that one might not be shipping for forever, which is why I put in the order for the black sports one to at least be able to try it right away and to get some sense of, is this a thing worth waiting for? Is it a thing that I want to really have? Or, I'll just return this and then cancel my order for the other one because it's just not worth it. But I like it straight away.
Okay.
The thing on my wrist is not a piece of jewelry. It is a very functional object, and that's fine.
What are you liking about it then? If you're using so few of the apps, you are liking just the little notifications and. Well, I guess you only.
Yeah, this is exactly how I feel things are useful. Is that if it can do a couple things well, I'm sold. And the thing that the Apple Watch does really well are these little tap notifications where it feels like it's tapping your wrist. Because when I got the watch, first thing I did, put it in mute so it doesn't make any noises, so it's not beeping or anything. And then I turned off basically every single notification except for a very few. And I really like the way a couple things are coming through on the watch. And one of which is really great because is timers. So I use timers a lot when I work. I have 40-minute timers and 20-minute timers that I'm constantly setting for different sorts of tasks. And I want to know when those have run down. And to have the watch do this little tap, tap, tap thing when the timer has run down, it's hard to describe how helpful that is when I'm working because it's something that I'm aware of, but I can ignore in a way that I could never ignore a vibrating phone or an audio alarm for the timer being over. And boy, is that great. It's like, okay, tap, tap, tap. I know that the timer has gone off, but you've managed to not distract me or startle me with the sound or be a thing that I have to deal with, like the iPhone 6 Plus and its huge vibration motor on the desk or anything. So I absolutely love this as a little feature. And even if it was just a watch that additionally did these silent timers, I'd be totally sold. But there are some other things. I've been playing around with the health features, which are really nice. I did my exercise at the gym today with it recording my heartbeat and all that stuff. I mean, this kind of thing you need to use over a longer period of time. I would say those silent notifications are the greatest. And I also did play around with the walking directions where it taps you on the wrist for when you want to turn left or when you want to turn right, which if you go back to one of our earlier podcasts was one of the things I guessed I would really like and find useful. And I'm exactly correct about that. Being able to set a destination, a walking destination, and have it just tap my wrist for the turns is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I can just walk somewhere and kind of not have to think about it. I don't have Siri interrupting me in my ear with audio directions if I'm trying to listen to a podcast at the same time, which is hugely frustrating in no small part because Siri is way too chatty. So I'm really liking that as well. And yeah, it's very nice. I'm pretty happy with it. Let me see. I have a couple other notes here.
Okay. Someone makes notes at least.
I do make notes. Oh yeah, so more convinced, terrible for notification junkies, not for Brady. My other concern the other concern that I had was I was worried about glancing at the time, that it might not work out very well because there is this little bit of a delay when you turn it up. So far I haven't even noticed, so I'm pleased about that.
The thing that comes into my head, and I know this is sort of something I harped on about before, but I still feel a bit sad about it because to me, watches in their various forms, but especially like, mechanical watches, they're just like a little connection with the past and part of human heritage. And I didn't feel like it was a big sacrifice to have a watch on your hand as a little nod to that and a little piece of tradition. And I feel like, oh, now we've lost that too, to functionality. It's a bit like, this is an extreme example and you'll get angry at me for it, but it's a bit like saying, well, let's knock down the Colosseum because the Colosseum is old and not useful for anything. And yet we could put a shopping centre there or a cinema or housing or things that people can actually use every minute of their life as opposed to just a relic from the past that we look at. And I feel like we're taking the little Colosseums off our hand, that little connection with the past and trading it in for trading it in for taps and notifications and timers, and we didn't need to do that. We already have lots of other things that do it, and so I feel a bit sad. I feel like we're losing a little connection with the past.
Well, yeah, you don't have to, and you're going to keep wearing your Omega Speedmaster,
of course.
But let me give you a good. I was just thinking of trying to explain why this is different, and so here's a really good example that just happened. So my wife and I, before the podcast, we were just having dinner, and I know that you were on a timetable for when we can record this today. So I had set an alarm on my watch that told me at this point you need to leave and go set up the podcast equipment in order to make it on time for Brady. And so while my wife and I were having dinner, she's just telling me a story about what was going on in her day. And while she's telling me the story, the alarm goes off on my watch. Now, I have it set to silent.
Yeah.
And the little moment is she can't hear my alarm. She has no idea that the alarm just went off. So my alarm doesn't interrupt her story. It doesn't cut her off. I'm aware of what I need to be aware of. And I could let her finish her story and then part the conversation at a moment that felt like it was a better moment to say, okay, now I've got to go. I'll talk to you later. And it didn't have to be like a little interruption. And I think that is really valuable to be able to be notified of something without disturbing the people around you if you set it up in the right way. Now, lots of people will leave sounds on.
A phone in your pocket wouldn't have done that.
The phone wouldn't do that because...
Of course it would do that.
You know perfectly well. You're sitting with someone, everyone can hear when your phone is vibrating anyway. Yeah? You know that, Brady.
All right. Yeah, well, not necessarily, but all right, yeah.
But you're going to grant it to me that lots of times you're sitting there. It's not like a secret that your phone is vibrating.
I think it should be. But maybe they haven't quite designed it well enough. But
we're not talking about if it should be or isn't, but it isn't under lots of. I know I'm with people. I can hear when their phone vibrates. It's no surprise. So that little kind of interaction was something that I thought was very nice to be able to do in a different kind of way. I know the thing that I need to know, but I haven't interrupted the person who I'm talking with. And it was just a very small moment, but that to me is like, oh, this is a great additional little feature. I mean, there's a couple other things that have been very nice just using it in the past day. Just in the gym, being able to tap a couple things on my wrist instead of having to pull my phone in and out of my pocket all the time. Like that just made exercising at the gym a little bit easier. And it's like these little things for me really add up. Like, ooh, can we make this interaction a little bit smoother? Can we do this just a little bit easier? I think that's really valuable.
You're going to think I'm crazy for saying this, but when you tell me that story about talking to your wife and getting that secret tap, but letting her continue to talk, I find that really sneaky and really non-transparent. And I actually don't like the idea that I would be sitting at you with the pub and you're getting all these secret messages into your wrist and not telling me and like managing me. I would almost rather the transparency of your phone going ping and you going, oh, that's my alarm. I've got a meeting later on, but let's keep talking. I almost find it a little bit deceptive that everyone's going around getting these secret little messages into their wrist and I don't know. And they're like, yeah, they're man managing me.
I love how you're already positing a world where everybody is already managing you with their secret watches. First of all, I can guarantee you that not very many people will set the watch the way I do to have it be completely silent. I bet almost everybody will leave all the little audio notifications on, which I think is entirely the wrong way to do it. And as we've discussed, I don't have very many notifications, and I am aware that with the watch, I'm already turning down some of the limited notifications that I have on the phone, because the one thing that I don't like is, at least in the current version of the software, there isn't quite enough control over how you want notifications to be distributed between the phone and the watch. It's a bit like, oh, the phone either mimics what the watch does or the phone doesn't. I'm sure they'll do more of that in the future, but the interesting trick, if for anyone who's playing around with the watch, that I have found so far, if you're a person like me who has very few notifications, is to not have the watch mirror the phone in do not disturb mode. What this means is that notifications that would normally be blocked by your phone while your phone is in do not disturb mode can still go to your watch. And there are a couple of situations where this is proven useful and like interesting things that you can do about it. But they do need to add more settings for precisely how notifications are controlled. But nobody's managing you yet, Brady. You haven't even seen anybody with a watch. And I'm sure everybody else's watches will be loud.
I will be curious to ask your wife or hear what your wife's reaction is when she hears that anecdote you just told, that she was telling a story and you got this secret tap she didn't know about and you like allowed her to finish her story. But the whole time you knew you now had something to do, but you were just keeping it to yourself and waiting for her to finish her story. I'll be curious to hear how she feels about that. She's probably pretty cool, but because she's a pretty cool person. But like, I wouldn't like it. I would prefer that I just knew that you just had got a notification and it was now on your mind. I'd want to know what's affecting you and not have secret things coming in that are affecting you in ways I don't know.
I can say very briefly on the flip side, because my wife got her watch on the day of launch, so she's had it a little bit longer than I have, and she had it when I didn't have one. One thing that I noticed right away is she has messages go to her watch. It was the first night we were just sitting around and she got a couple of text messages. And I have to say, I really liked the fact that she could do exactly what she did, which was a couple of times she clearly got the notification on her wrist that a message had come through. She flipped up her watch, she looked at the message and also saw that it didn't need to be replied to, and then just put her wrist down and we continued talking and doing whatever we were doing. It sounds dumb, but that's a million times less disruptive than when she would have to pick up her phone and kind of hold her phone in between us and take a look at it and then put the phone down. And then the phone is now, say, like on the table in between the two of us. It doesn't sound like it's a big difference, but I'm telling you, it's a huge difference in someone being able to just quickly look at a thing versus bringing out an object to like physically demonstrate that they are checking the thing in front of you or potentially unlocking their phone. I don't know. It's different in I think a very positive way. It makes things smoother in a way that I found, I like, or I should put it this way, that I was kind of less annoyed at moments when she would check a message than I might otherwise be in certain circumstances. So I was on the opposite end of that, and I give it a thumbs up.
Well, I'm happy that I'm actually a bit disappointed that you're happy. I was secretly hoping that you'd get it and tell me that it's not that great and you'd return it. But I knew that wasn't what was going to happen. I knew you'd love it, and you'd do. I should be happy for you. I'm being grouchy old man.
It's okay. You can be a grouchy old man.
Yeah.
It's not even that I'm happy with it. It just feels that it's almost like it is integrated so fast into normalcy. It is surprising. And that's why I use the word low key. I really can't think of any kind of analogy for it, but it's almost like, I don't know, like buying buying a really good coffee cup. Is this coffee cup a lot better than the previous one? Well, no, it's a little better, but you immediately find yourself using it all the time and you appreciate the way that it is slightly better, but it's also you're used to using a coffee cup all the time, so it just like slides right in. There's no getting used to it at all.
Like a really comfy pair of shoes.
Yeah. Or just, getting a new pair of shoes that's very comfortable. You don't need to relearn how to use shoes.
Yeah.
And I feel that the watch is very much like that. I don't really, or at least so far, I haven't really been using the third-party apps at all. It's just a watch in the way that a watch normally is. There's a couple of buttons on the edges that I can press to get some additional information. And it also silently notifies me about things that I have chosen for it to notify me. And it's a big deal. I actually already replied to you on the watch once today with one of those messages that you were sending me before. And it was very nice, very easy.
This was during that time when you couldn't contact me and couldn't tell me you had a watch.
Yeah, this was 15 minutes before the show when we were instant messaging.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Although I don't know if I can send you flowers from the watch. I think it's just smiley faces, so I don't think those are as good.
I've been sitting on this really hard, flat chair for about 2 hours now, and I've got a really sore backside.
I'm sure the listeners want to know.
I'm just saying maybe we should stop.
Let's stop. We have
got a couple of other cool items here, but they can wait.
He's totally lying. There's nothing else in our show
No,
notes. We just
there
have
were
to
two.
stop
There were
here.
no. There are two more items here. You can see them under Brady is frustrating. I won't say what they are because you'll get all upset because you don't want people to know what we're going to discuss next time. But you see them. You see them both. We were looking at the same document.
I do see them both. I have prepared really for neither of those things. They were just things I wrote down to make it look like I had prepared. Yeah, so that we can talk about Apple Watch. I do have one on me right now.